Management of chemicals and waste, make visible the invisible, sound management of chemicals and waste, right? So now the conference aims to raise global awareness about the hidden dangers of hazardous chemicals as well as hazardous waste, and also strengthen those efforts that are there to manage these materials safely. Now for Botswana, this represents key opportunities to enhance environmental protection or to promote sustainable tourism and other functions, to develop more robust systems when it comes to how it is that we manage chemicals, chemical waste, and just waste generally. So we're going to discuss this. To discuss this, Botswana's priorities, as well as we're going into this year's COP, and the key messages that are going to be communicated, or the key messages that are going to be relevant to us, and strategies that we can adopt to address these challenges that are posed by hazardous chemicals and waste. So this morning we're going to discuss that with the Department of Environmental Protection Acting Director, Frank Molaletsi, as well as Saidy Motladiile, who's a principal chemist and the focal point for the global framework on chemicals. Okay, having said that, having introduced you like that, let me welcome both of you this morning. A very good morning to you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us.
Right. Let's start here. BRS definition, and perhaps just to lay that introductory opening or establishing statement. What BRS stands for, and what is it?
Thank you very much. BRS simply stands for, is the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions.
Right.
These are three conventions that seek to deal with the issues of environmentally sound management of chemicals and waste. For instance, under the Basel Convention, its objective is to control the movement of hazardous waste, transboundary movement of hazardous waste. And this is in a view of trying to curb dumping of waste, hazardous waste in other countries.
Right.
And then under the Rotterdam Convention, it seeks to promote transparency and shared responsibility in the international trade of certain hazardous chemicals by requiring exporting countries to inform the importing countries. Yeah. So there has to be what is called prior informed consent.
Yeah.
Yes. And then when it comes to Stockholm Convention, it deals mainly with safeguarding human health and environment by controlling and eliminating persistent organic pollutants, commonly called the POPs.
Right.
These are dangerous chemicals that persist in the environment for a long time.
Right.
If you think of things like DDT, for instance.
Yeah. And persistent exposure then being hazardous or harmful to human existence.
That's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then these are multilateral, I suppose, environment agreements. And one would want to perhaps take a little bit of background. When I know that it started somewhere in the 80s, you know what necessitated it, and perhaps what levels of commitment, UNDP and other international organs, how do they come in to support that these multilateral environmental agreements are really actualized? If anyone of you can comment on that, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. Management of chemicals requires a concerted effort, a joint effort.
Yeah.
And as such, with regards to the Basel Convention, there was a realization that developed countries tend to dump hazardous chemicals into developing countries like Botswana. We had cases in the past, Sierra Leone, where hazardous chemicals were dumped into that country. So that convention came into force to try to prevent that, so that when chemicals are being, chemical waste is being transported for disposal, there has to be notifications to say, as Botswana, we are able to handle this, and therefore bring it here. But if you are not able to handle, we can only say, pass freely through our country, but we also monitor where you enter the country and where you leave our country, so that there is no any form of disposal in our country.
Right.
So this Basel Convention, it started, I think, in 1992, and Botswana ratified it in, I think, 1998.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are the areas that Africa, particularly region Africa, has complained about? Sometimes it will come in the form of waste. Yeah. Sometimes it's these grey goods, like, you know, that it is a form of dumping. Some, well, ordinary citizens would comment as such. I don't know whether expert views are also of the same position, because the shopping trap is that there's a lot that is manufactured, there's a lot that doesn't get used, but then it has to go somewhere, and a lot of it ends here. Yeah. Does that also come into the the parameters of the interest of these BRS conventions anywhere?
Sorry?
Yeah.
Yes, it does, especially when you look at the Stockholm Convention, yeah. Which looks into what you call persistent organic pollutants. These chemicals, they persist in the environment, they last long in the environment, yeah. They bioaccumulate, you know, they cause a lot of cancers, you know, and they're what you call endocrine disrupting chemicals. So these are very nasty chemicals. So Botswana did its first, assessment of these chemicals when they were initially 12. They were initially called the Dirty Dozen. And in our country, we only had 3 of those chemicals. Which, they were in products. One was in product that is, it was in electrical transformers. It's called polychlorinated biphenyl. It's quite a mouthful of a name. Yeah. And then we got an exemption to use DDT for malaria control. You know, this one, it was allowed for use because it was to protect human health against malaria. And then we have also this other one, which is caused by, you know, what we normally do as Botswana, backyard burning. So when we do backyard burning, we release what you call dioxins and furan. You know, these are also POPs chemicals which causes all these cancers. Yeah. So following that, the 1996 NIP, we now have about 32 chemicals which have been listed to have those properties. And we just completed our national assessment, and we now have 10 of those chemicals that are present in the country.
Okay.
Yeah. So with that assessment, the country now is in a position to now better manage what it has, because without knowing what you have, you can't manage it.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. And so then how do we manage? Because I know that it has been expressed in the past that we don't have, as a country, an overarching comprehensive environmental law per se. There are different policies that are in place. Perhaps let me give you a chance to speak to those. How do we manage?
Yes, as we said, Botswana, by being party to these conventions, yeah, there are certain protocols, international protocols, that have to be followed and adhered to by member states. For instance, any waste that passes through Botswana, maybe for disposal
elsewhere, not
elsewhere, not in Botswana, there has to be a transit permit. The country that is exporting that waste for disposal, they have to seek consent first. So under the Basel Convention, we have these protocols for prior informed consent. So there's no waste that can pass through our country without that consent from Botswana. The other thing is that under the Waste Management Act of 1998, the Basel Convention has been domesticated. So it really binds all the players to adhere to the Basel protocols. So these are some of the measures that are in place to control the movement of hazardous waste.
Or the situation of environmental degradation from product, from some sort of product. So then we have the waste management. I know that we also have something around climate change. We have also something around adaptation policies and stuff like that. Maybe the others that you can mention so that we have an idea of what we have.
Botswana has drafted policies, strategies for sustainable development. We have the climate change policies. we also have various other statutes that promote environmental sustainability.
Yeah.
They are found in different departments in the ministry. So, yes, we use these statutes to manage the waste in the country.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
you wanted to add to that?
And in addition, having realized that, you know, the basil, Rotterdam, and of course the Minamata, the one which deals with mercury, they haven't been domesticated. You know, we work with, it's a multi-stakeholder kind of approach. We work with Ministry of Health, Ministry of Agriculture. Ministry of Health, currently we are working on the chemical product and substance bill, which aims to domesticate these other conventions. So we also have the Agrochemicals Act, which basically manages, you know, the agrochemicals. So, you know, it's a multi-sectoral approach to manage these chemicals, because if you don't approach it that way, we will fail as a country. So we need to head that way.
Because we do have valuable use for some of these chemicals. So then, when we're talking about another one that caught my interest is these persistent
Organic pollutants.
Organic pollutants. What's the situation there for Botswana?
Yeah, for Botswana, like I said, we have 10 currently out of the 32 COPs chemicals. And these, you know, they are found, one of them called P4s or P4R, they are found in fire extinguishers or firefighting foam. So it comes at 3%. So we need to now come up with a strategy of going for alternatives. And then we have what you call brominated flame retardants. So these are chemicals which makes, you know, material not to catch fire quickly.
Okay.
Yeah, so these are found in our carpets, in vehicles, especially vehicles which were manufactured before 2017. So all the vehicles, they've got those brominated flame retardants. So as a country, we now have to now manage end-of-life vehicles as we, you know, we discard our vehicles. So they have those brominated flame retardants. So this is just an example, some examples of what we have to deal with. So the completed National Implementation Plan, it outlines what Botswana, moving forward, is going to be doing to manage all these 10 chemicals which we have. But for now, we've been able to replace DDT with an alternative. So since 2018, Botswana has not been using DDT for malaria control. We are using alternatives. As for the ones in transformers, we have removed all transformers we were working with BPC. They've removed them from use, and we are currently waiting for disposal. There's a contractor that is going to be collecting them very soon for sound disposal.
Okay. Well, one of the areas that is going to be, if we're going to succeed with living in a sustainable manner with such product, chemicals to be specific today, and waste to be specific today, is it cannot be just at policy level. It would have to take the participation of the citizenry. And one of the things that even perhaps from an ordinary citizen, from a layperson's observation, that I could state is that not many of us are aware of just how much we interact with chemicals, and perhaps how it is that we should be interacting with some of these chemicals. In localizing some of these agreements, then how do we then cascade or involve the citizen?
Yeah, thank you so much.
In this responsibility,
Yeah. No, it's very important that the measures that are targeting this, the control of these chemicals and waste, it should involve the communities. The communities must be aware. So public education and awareness is very important. It's very key in the management of these hazardous chemicals. For instance, on a daily basis, we use gadgets, electronic gadgets like cell phones. We are exposed to television sets, you know. These things at the end of their life, how do you dispose of them? Is very important because they contain hazardous materials. So a lot of people are not aware that these gadgets that are so good to us, at the end of their lifespan, you know, how to dispose of them is very important.
We don't know.
Yes, that's why I'm saying we
Yes.
need
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
educate the nation.
And some
on
of it
these
is just a
things.
general household practice. I'll tell you, for instance, the practices that are common. Is bury or burn. As a way of disposal of waste. Bury or burn is commonplace Botswana, and this is us, real citizens. So what and these conventions, I believe, speak to some of that, but we don't know how to relate with what the international best practices are. How are we faring out there in terms of educating the citizen?
Yeah, you know, public education, like what Deputy Director was saying, is very key. And especially when it comes to issue of disposal,
Right.
which as a country, we don't have a hazardous waste management facility. But in terms of managing the gadgets, we will be having a project that is coming up to assist Botswana in setting up, you know, building up capacity in terms of e-waste management. So slowly as a country, because there are equally competing priorities for the country, slowly we are catching up, and we are setting up, you know, facilities that will be able to manage such type of waste.
Okay, perhaps just to add to this, our integrated waste management policy speaks to doing circularity, that is making sure that we generate as minimal as possible of waste in our processes, industrial processes and so forth. So going the circular economy route is very important. Issues of reuse of waste, recycling and so forth. It will ensure sustainability. Yeah,
absolutely.
So it's very important.
So then, April 28th, at the BRS COPs, who is attending, or who are our stakeholders that are attending? What do we expect Botswana's participation, level of participation, of messaging to be? Let's talk about the event starting on the 28th.
Yes, there will be, Botswana is sending a delegation, Minister of Environment, other stakeholder ministries like agriculture, they deal with pesticides, Minister of Health.
What is our highest profile of the attendance? A minister level?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
We are going to have what is called a high-level segment, where ministers of environment will be there. They'll have a platform to engage, talk to issues of pollution, loss of biodiversity, climate change, yes, and also the sound management of these chemicals, and reaffirm Botswana's position and commitment to these global efforts.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to ask a closing question. Do you want to
No, it's fine.
a closing question, because unfortunately our time has run out. It's just how can you and I, now the ordinary Botswana, contribute towards management or protecting our precious Botswana against these these toxic elements? Yeah.
I think it borders on the theme, you know, make the invisible visible. I think we tend to take chemicals for granted, if I were to use that word, and just because the effects of these chemicals, they will be realized later
Long
in
term,
life. Yeah,
yes.
so we have to start realizing that these chemicals, if you don't manage and handle them properly, either be household chemicals, you know, industrial chemicals, agrochemicals, if you don't manage them properly, then later on in life, that's when you are going to be realizing these effects. So that hence make the invisible visible, because we at times respond to issues or episodes which, you know, issues which have, you know, results being felt, you know, not too long.
Yeah.
So I think we need to start using our protective equipment. You know, we have this laxity in terms of using PPE. You are given PPE, but you feel it's obstructing you from doing your...
I'm gonna,
yeah.
unfortunately, my time is really run out, but I wanted to ask you to spare the last 30 seconds for Deputy Director to close with that one.
Yeah. Yes, as we'll be going, Botswana will be participating in this COPs. We want the Botswana's position to be heard. These COPs, they also help in ensuring that we mobilize resources like financial assistance, things like technology transfer. We need such technologies so that we manage our waste and chemicals. So this offers those opportunities to mobilize this kind of resources and the expertise for the sound management of waste.
Okay. Let me thank you both for your time here this morning. Yes. Make the invisible visible from the 28th of April to the 9th of May in Geneva. This is talking about making a sound management of chemicals and waste known to us ordinary citizens or participators in consumption and use of these chemicals, and how it is that we can continue to safely interact.